Well, it's officially the end of an era, ladies and gentlemen. As of this past weekend, Saturday morning cartoons are a thing of the past. They no longer exist.
Well, until nostalgia and Facebook groups demand its return in a few years, whenever people get hungry for nostalgia and force networks to bring it back. We can totally see this happening.
Yeah, it kind of happened like something recently happened when
Yeah.
a group on Facebook brought this nostalgic item back.
Oh, like third.
Be careful, there's 56 grams of sugar in there.
I can vividly remember the feeling of getting up on a Saturday morning after a week of school, pouring a bowl of cereal, and plopping down in front of the TV, still in my pajamas, to watch episodes of cartoons like Muppet Babies, Bobby's World, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Animaniacs, and so on. I mean, literally every major channel back then was showing something awesome. It was a good time to be alive.
It was. But Saturday morning cartoons had been around successfully since at least the 1960s, when animated adventures of mainstream superheroes graced the screen with shows like Superman, Spider-Man, Aquaman. In the 70s, it was all about animated versions of popular live-action series, shows like Star Trek and the Dukes of Hazzard.
Them Duke boys at it again. So what happened, Elliot? Why have Saturday morning cartoons, a tradition that have been around for over 50 years, finally been killed off?
Well, there's a couple of reasons.
All right, let me know.
Back in the early 90s, everyone kind of finally realized that their children were being raised by television. So what happens when you have an epiphany like that? You get the government involved and have them force broadcasters to make shows that are more educational than entertaining.
Boo!
Hey, FCC, raise my kids.
Yeah, raise my kids for me, government. In 1990, the Children's Television Act was put into place by the Federal Communications Commission and was designed to increase the amount of educational children's programming on air.
Which was, we'd say, the start of the downfall of entertaining cartoons, because they were sacrificing the quality of the show to shoehorn in a positive educational message throughout so that it would count towards the federally mandated goal of that type of programming in their schedules.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some cool, like Magic School Bus was okay.
And what was the other one? Captain Planet? That was pretty good.
Was that part of that?
I don't know if that was part of Saturday morning stuff, but that was definitely wrapped
It's
around
like
the same
shoving
kind of thing.
environmentalism down our throats.
Take that. So this was the beginning of the end, obviously. NBC abandoned its Saturday morning cartoon lineup in 1992 in favor of live-action teen sitcoms and news blocks, and just labeled that educational.
Which is bullshit, because it was like Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not educational. In 1996, there was an FCC mandate to coincide with the Children's Television Act that required network channels to show a minimum of 3 hours of children's educational or informational programming per week. Which, if you remember watching any shows on Saturday morning since the mid-90s, you might remember this logo appearing on the show. So, over the last 2 decades or so, the big American TV networks, your NBCs, your ABCs, your Fox, your CBS, have all basically abandoned the old Saturday morning cartoons tradition in favor of educational programming. The final nail in the coffin came this past Saturday, which was the last time the CW network aired their Vortex programming block, which featured Dragon Ball Z and Kai, Digimon Fusion, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Sonic X, and several other cartoons.
They're replacing it with One Magnificent Morning, a block of live-action educational programs for kids. So thanks, FCC!
Thanks!
Oh, wow, what a great job you're doing!
The kids are safe now that Dragon Ball Z's off the TV. You
Ugh.
fucking dicks.
In a lot of ways, though, this is the natural course of things. With cable services giving TV viewers so many specialized options, kids wanting to watch cartoons can turn on Disney XD, or Nickelodeon, or Cartoon Network at pretty much any time to get their cartoon fix, Saturday morning included.
Yeah, it makes sense that the networks would eventually just throw in the towel on the whole issue, but it still sucks for all the kids out there getting their TV through an antenna.
So since we are remembering our dear friend, the Saturday morning cartoon block, we're gonna go over our personal favorites from when we were growing up. I mean, this list is totally subjective, so feel free to post your favorites in the comments below and let us know what show is your favorite. So yeah, obviously, it's all depending on what era of Saturday morning cartoons you grew up in. Obviously,
we're talking like 1990 to
yeah, like
1996.
88 to 96 or so, because I remember some of the shows that were on like 88, 89, just not as well. So first up, we're gonna start out with Captain N, the Game Master. Tell them about it, Elliot.
It's basically just a giant product placement show. It was all things Nintendo thrown into a giant animation pot and stirred together.
Yeah.
The show's hero Kevin Keane and his dog are sucked through a warp zone in his TV and transported to another universe called Videoland, where they must save the day by defeating Mother Brain and her minions, which include King Hippo from Super Punch-Out and Dr. Wily from Mega Man. You can find a lot of episodes of this series right here on YouTube, if you know where to look. Next up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
If you've seen our show for any amount of extended time, you know that we are basically Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fanboys, and nothing locked in my love for these heroes on the half shell like the animated series, which started in the late 80s. Yeah, I know. I don't think there's a theme song to a cartoon that has been more hammered into my brain than this one. And the show was fantastic. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. It was like reliving the movie multiple times a week, except they could do so much more. And Bebop and Rocksteady were there too.
Oh yeah, and Krang.
Yeah, you can't forget about Krang, the disembodied brain from Dimension X.
What a great character design.
Yeah.
Did we mention that Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was the voice of Shredder? It had it all, and it will go down as one of my favorite animated series of all time.
It is a fantastic cartoon. Oh, and then we're totally going back to what we were saying earlier about the necessity of educational crap, by the way. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did it right. They would give you turtle tips at the end of every episode, kind of like the G.I. Joe PSAs.
Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the theme song to the mid-90s X-Men animated show still has like a Pavlov's dog's effect on me all these years later. I hear it and I want to run to the nearest couch with a Pop-Tart and watch Wolverine tear Sentinels a new asshole with his claws.
Yeah. For most people in my age group, X-Men was our gateway into the Marvel Universe, and I think it's safe to say that the success of the grittier live-action X-Men movies a couple years later is thanks to the show getting kids hooked on X-Men while they were young. I remember you used to be able to get a free VHS of X-Men cartoons when you ordered a pizza from Pizza Hut.
What?
Yep.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, being from the mid-90s, the show is, of course, very dated, very 90s. Jubilee's character is basically a Valley Girl stereotype that does not exist anymore. It would probably not make sense to anyone who didn't live through that time. But if you want to trace Marvel's journey from comic books to like the mainstream cash cow that they are now, X-Men is a great place to start.
Yeah.
I think that's basically where it all happened.
Yep. And then now moving over from Marvel to DC, another great series, Batman the Animated Series. Woo! That is a fucking great show.
It was fantastic.
Yes. If you are looking for something timeless, look no further than Batman the Animated Series, aka The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which is where the DC animated universe began and where DC's domination of animated superhero content really kicked off.
Yeah, the Art Deco, film noir inspired take on Batman was fun enough for the kids, but like dark and gritty enough for adults that like Batman. And it was nominated for and won a shitload of awards and led to Kevin Conroy voicing Batman in just about everything for over 20 years, as well as Mark Hamill doing the same. I mean,
Mark Hamill as the Joker is one of the best voiceover acting jobs I've ever heard.
Fantastic. I mean, Conroy, he started on this in like 1992
Yeah.
and is still doing video game voicings and like, animated series voicings of Batman to this day. Like, he fucking nailed it. He also apparently was the one who, he's the first person to come up with the idea that Batman's voice is different than Bruce Wayne's voice.
Oh, okay.
Started on Batman the Animated Series.
There you go. It was also where Harley Quinn first appeared. And I don't want to imagine a world without Harley Quinn cosplay.
I don't want to live there.
I don't want to live in that world.
No.
Next up, we got Bobby's World. Before Howie Mandel got rid of all of his hair and started to resemble Mr. Clean hosting a bunch of reality and game shows, he was a pretty decent comedian. And through his stand-up routines, he was able to land an animated series based on the character he created named Bobby Generic.
It's generic.
Bobby is a young boy with an overactive imagination, and he visits a magical place called Bobbyland, where he rules everything.
Oh, don't you know?
Don't ya know?
Okay, two weird things about this. One, Bobby's voice is literally just the voice of Skeeter from Muppet Babies, who is also voiced by Howie Mandel.
Yeah, there was no change at all, yeah.
Very lazy.
And two, Bobby Generic showed up in an episode of Howie Mandel's game show Deal or No Deal in 2007, so he lives on, technically.
It's a really weird clip, though.
Yeah.
That was 7 years ago.
Wow. A truth bomb from Spool. Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies.
Fuck.
Bobby's World is actually legally available on YouTube through a network that currently retains the rights. So grab some cereal and go nuts. Just look for it. It's all over there.
So moving on, I don't think I really got the whole like absurd satire aspect of The Tick when I watched it as a kid.
It was kind of hard to wrap your head around the whole
Oh yeah,
aspect of
but
it.
like looking at it now, it's clearly a parody of like the animated superhero genre, and it does it like perfect.
Yep.
The main characters, the Tick and Arthur, were superheroes in costumes representing a giant blue tick and a white moth, and they shared an apartment together, and they were never out of their costume or out of character.
Wow.
It was still absurd and hilarious for a kid, but like now that we're all grown up and shit, it really holds up, especially now that superheroes are so mainstream. I mean, I think it's time to bring the Tick back.
Oh, good news, Elliot. Because they are. At least the
What?
live-action version of it. Yeah, there's news on our Tick reboot. So it's coming. More nostalgia for your face, for your eyeballs.
That's actually very exciting.
All right, guys. So obviously this is bad news. It's kind of bad news for like the tradition of it, But I mean, like we said, there's tons of channels out there where you can watch cartoons whenever the fuck you want, and Netflix exists, and just the
Hulu.
internet in general exists. Like, we're on YouTube right now. Just go to the search bar and look at whatever you want to watch. But still, it's a tradition, and you're not gonna have it anymore. I mean, still, set some time aside Saturday morning, then pull up YouTube with a bowl of cereal. Watch that. But what did we miss? What did you guys grow up with for your Saturday morning cartoons? Reboot? Remember Reboot?
Oh, fuck.
This was like the first
Early
CGI.
CGI.
Yeah, that was
Beast
crazy.
Wars.
Beast Wars?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian.
There was a lot of good stuff. So put what you thought was the best in the comments below, and we'll go watch that this Saturday morning. We'll eat our cereal. Yeah. Teenage Mutant
Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
You may even have a heart attack from that surge.
Yeah, I think you are.